Paul Heyman sees the vision to do what's best for business. And yeah, we've got 3 new champions, so just keep watching. Let's just keep it real, the only place to start here is with the main event, so let's just keep celebrating that the future's in good hands because Seth Rollins teams up with Paul Heyman to deliver a chair shot heard around the world and follow that up with a stomp for good measure to pin Roman Reigns. There was just too much that happened in this match, so let's just go through the top 10 moments in order. Number 1, Roman Reigns couldn't hand the Ulafala to Paul Heyman before the match, instead opting to put it onto the mat, which led Punk to rub it in his face by rolling out of ringside and asking Heyman for advice. Number 2, Punk threw Rollins over the barricade and grabbed one of those souvenir chairs that you get for paying a ridiculous amount of money to sit that close to the ring. And then Rollins decided to also land some trash can shots, but Punk finally finished him off with a suplex through one of those trash cans. Number 3, Punk reversed a Superman punch into a swinging neckbreaker and then a double DDT onto both men before an elbow drop onto Rollins. Number 4, briefly and perhaps inadvertently, Reigns and Punk teamed up for a doomsday device, but then Reigns turned that around with a Superman punch. Number 5, the finishes started to kick in with Reigns spearing Punk, but Rollins stopped eating one himself by jumping midair for a pedigree, and then he followed that up with a stomp, but he took an extra moment to get Punk out of the ring, which allowed Reigns time to kick out. Number 6, Rollins pedigreed Punk and then tried to convince Reigns to join him to get rid of Punk. So just when we looked like we were gonna get a shield bomb, nope, Reigns of course took matters into his own hands by clotheslining Rollins and then delivered the powerbomb through the announce table himself onto Punk, and then another powerbomb through this Spanish announce table onto Rollins, and then speared Rollins inside the ring, but that didn't finish things off either. Number 7, Rollins had Punk in a sharpshooter, and then Reigns locked in the guillotine on Rollins. That allowed Punk to get away for a stomp on Reigns, and he followed that up with a GTS on Rollins, but still, Rollins kicked out. Number 8, all 3 men exchanged finishers in a dazzling flurry with Punk landing a GTS on Rollins, followed by Reigns spearing Punk, and Rollins somehow had enough in him to stomp Reigns before he also fell over and all 3 men were on the mat. Number 9, this led to Heyman seeing enough, so he grabbed a steel chair and had to choose between giving it to either Punk or Reigns, and after a very long deliberation, he slid it to Punk instead to join his best friend, but as Punk went to swing at Reigns, Heyman turned on him and delivered a low blow, so with Reigns cackling like a banshee, he had the wise man hand him that chair, and so with Rollins in perfect position to get revenge for a 2nd straight year at WrestleMania, well, Heyman also low-blowed him as well. And that leads us to number 10 with Heyman officially turning on his best friend and his tribal chief by handing that same chair to Rollins so he could do the deed with that chair shot and a stomp. So that means Rollins is the one, and he landed 5 finishers as well as 1 sharpshooter. He also ate 4 finishers and 1 guillotine, but he is now the one who has the wise man on his side. So honestly, good for Heyman for realizing that he is worth more than just continuing to submit to the tyrant Roman Reigns. And how Heyman will also make sure that the WWE is led by someone who will do everything to make sure that it is on the right path. And that leads us to a visionary future as Rollins improves to 4-3 in singles matches and is now back to 500 at 6-6 in singles matches since last WrestleMania. That means CM Punk is the 2s, and he landed 4 finishers himself and clamped down 2 Anaconda Vices, but he also ate 4 finishers and 2 submission holds, as well as a painful low blow. But he should hold his head up high here because he did nothing wrong, and he got to fulfill his lifelong dream with his best friend by his side, and he is not the one who turned his back on his friend, but he's just 2-4 in singles matches in 2025 and ends the year at 4-5 in singles matches since last WrestleMania. But that makes Roman Reigns the 3s as he landed 5 finishers and sliced in 2 guillotines, but he ate 6 finishers along the way, including that final stomp, as well as 2 submissions and another low blow. So he's just 1-2 in singles matches, not just in 2025, but for the entire cycle since WrestleMania 40, because he did not have a single singles match in 2024 after losing to Rhodes at WrestleMania 40. And Reigns proved yet again to be a fraudulent tyrant tribal chief as he continues his pathetic streak of now having 13 straight singles matches that he has not won without outside assistance, and that dates back all the way to June 17th, 2022, when he last got a win all by himself. And yes, that is almost 3 years without winning a match on his own. So he is truly the worst, and he proved it again tonight. And it was such poetic justice when he thought the wise man had crawled back to him by handing him that chair, and he started laughing and celebrating early before taking one where the sun don't shine. So this was truly a superhuman effort for all 3 men here tonight, because they all just refused to give in despite all the damage inflicted upon them by the other 2. But it was Heyman helping Rollins to do what is best for business. So this has to get a double okay. So with that, let's go back to the beginning of the show and just keep yeeting to Cupid's chokehold, because just when Jey Uso looked to be down and out, he countered out of a powerbomb into his own powerbomb, and then followed a super kick, a spear, and 3 Uso splashes with a chokehold of his own. And Gunther quickly tapped out. So that makes Jey the one. So take a look at your yeet friend, who never seems to get a lot of respect. But Jey must have seen flashbacks to Jimmy bleeding when he was being put to sleep, so then he became a man on a mission, because in addition to that flurry, he had a spear earlier and also had a nice Hurricane Rana spear splash trifecta that couldn't put Gunther away. And after at least 2 spears and 4 splashes, it was the sleeper that finally got the job done. So while Jey may look like just a gym class hero up against Gunther, well, we may just have to give this man his flowers, because he worked very hard to get into position that he earned it by winning the Rumble. And on top of that, he is 4-1 in one-on-one matches in 2025, as well as a very nice 15-6 singles record following last year's WrestleMania. So just like Cupid's chokehold got to #1 on the US pop airplay charts, we have to simply say that we love Jey getting to the #1 spot on Raw as the new World Heavyweight Champion. But that makes Gunther the 2s, and he looked to have the match just where he wanted it, much like those other 3 matches, because he was grinding the pace to a halt and landed a superplex, T-Rex dropkick, powerbomb trifecta that might have put most men away on most nights. But after that first Uso splash, he got frustrated and walked away with the title, only to stop to hit Jey in the face with it when Jey attempted a suicide dive. And unfortunately for Gunther, the ref got out of the way for this, and he did not see it, because at least that would have given Gunther a DQ loss, which would have let him keep the title. But this did give Gunther the advantage again, because he put in a sleeper of his own 2 times, but he couldn't recover after Jey reversed the second one into a German suplex. So with only 5 title defenses, despite having the title for 8 months, maybe this reign wasn't quite as good as we thought. However, he is still just 5-1 in one-on-one matches in 2025, and an incredible 17-2 in singles matches since last WrestleMania. Well, you simply have to be happy for this scrappy underdog finding a way to get revenge for his 3 prior losses, and for Gunther making Jimmy bleed right in front of him. So we will give this match an okay. Next, we just keep thanking God for the New Day, because the New Day becomes 12-time tag champions on the main roster, dismantling the War Machine, and following that up with a stomp to Daybreak. So the New Day is the ones, and they were savvy veterans here as they attacked the War Raiders' weakness, with Kingston landing an assisted senton off the top rope to Eric's back, and then a famouser around his neck. And Woods also got into the action with a double stomp on Eric, and Kofi then had a trouble in paradise as well. But they'd made sure to go until the break of day and improved to 6-0 in traditional tags. And the War Raiders are the twos, and I wasn't sure they could be stopped when Eric immediately shook off a big right by Woods like it was nothing, and then he used Ivar to slam him onto both men. They also had a nice assisted splash by Ivar and then a doomsday moonsault by Ivar as well. And Eric landed another crushing running knee, but they could not fire up the War Machine when it was right there for the taking because Kingston yanked Ivar's legs off of the middle rope. So they take their second straight loss to the New Day, and this one cost them the title. So they are 3-2 in traditional tags and 8-3 in all tags since returning. Well, we're simply not sure why the announcers made a big deal of Kofi stopping the War Machine, as this was a mere minor infraction that the refs let go every single night in tag team action. And just because Woods was also distracting the ref doesn't change anything here. And in fact, the Street Profits did the exact same thing on SmackDown just one day earlier to stop a Skull and Bones. So no one complained about it then, so no one should complain about this now. It was simply smart tag team wrestling by the GOATs. So this match was neither the prettiest nor the most interesting, but seriously, there's nothing to complain with the finish. However, it wasn't that great, so we're giving it a not okay. Next, we just keep throwing caution tape to the Category 5 hurricane-like wind as Jade Cargill showed off some X-Men level power to make Naomi jaded. So Jade is the ones, and her major power moves included a total whirl backbreaker. She twice then caught Naomi off of the top rope, first landing a jackhammer and second a fall-away slam, and she also shook off multiple super kicks to go into an incredible pop-up powerbomb, and then finished her off with that jaded, so she goes to 1-1 in one-on-one matches and is overall 4-2 in one-on-one matches. And that makes Naomi the twos, and she came out with some new music that I guess fits her more right now, but other than that, it was just Regardless, she sent Jade on several trips to the floor with an X Factor, a dropkick, and a blockbuster, and she may have gotten a win with a blockbuster off of the top rope followed by her split-legged moonsault, but Jade was just not to be denied here, so Naomi drops to 3-2 in one-on-one matches and 9-6 since last WrestleMania. Well, both of them brought out moves we didn't even know they had, or used moves that we knew they had in different manners, so we have to give this an okay. Up next, we just keep howling into the full moon as the Samoan werewolf was unleashed into the night with a Samoan drop off of the top rope and 2 mighty moonsaults to become United States champion. So Jacob Fatu is the ones as he continued to show unreal athleticism and recoverability that he has displayed since his first night in WWE, and he impressively stopped a BFT early on by simply being too strong and catching himself before hitting the mat. He also had a nice pop-up Samoan drop, and then later had a super kick, 3 hip attacks, and a swanton bomb that did not quite do it, but the mighty moonsaults were a thing of beauty, so he goes to 3-2 in one-on-one matches and is now 4-2 in one-on-one since joining the WWE. So LA Knight is the twos, as he couldn't really ever truly get some cloud cover to stop the werewolf from morphing into his full form, but it was not for a lack of trying, as he did land a net breaker and the megastar elbow that still landed despite Fatu's recoverability to at least get to his feet. But maybe the most incredible move of the entire night was when he caught Fatu mid-air during a mighty moonsault and turned it into a BFT, but Knight was very unlucky that Fatu was right by the ropes and grabbed it with his hand. Well, Knight only had one defense in the second reign, and that was a no contest, so not the greatest here, but he is still an impressive 7-1-1 in one-on-one matches this year, and went 22-7-1 in singles since last WrestleMania. Both men did bring their A game here, and everything we could have wanted to see, we saw it, so this is a double okay. Next, we just keep being hard-headed because El Grande Americano again slides in a piece of metal into his mask and uses it to injure Rey Fenix and steal a win, so El Grande Americano is the ones, and so maybe he was blackballed from those Mexican wrestling leagues for using a loaded mask for all those years. Still, he has so much athleticism and, impressively, still has it after all of these decades in the business, but he shouldn't need to stoop to such underhanded tactics to win. But he did have a nice reverse German suplex and maybe the most incredible move of the night with what I'm going to call a 450 moonsault. Even the announcers didn't have a clue what to call it, but it just seemed like a moonsault with an extra rotation in it, which was absolutely incredible. Nonetheless, he still put that metal in his mask, so Fenix's goodbye amigo kick just slammed his foot up against that metal and it hurt him. So Americano put in the ankle lock and then landed a headbutt as Fenix flew from the top rope and finished it off with his own flying headbutt, so he goes to 2-0 in one-on-one matches and 3-0 in all matches. But that makes Fenix the twos, but we'll start first by wishing Rey Mysterio the best and for a speedy recovery after suffering an unfortunate injury on SmackDown last night, so he just couldn't go. But Fenix nobly stepped up to the plate here after having 2 matches just last night, which gives him 5 matches in just 16 days in the WWE. Some incredible stuff, absolutely amazing, and somehow he looked no worse for the wear. And he had a nice springboard missile dropkick, as well as a mile-high crossbody to the floor, and also a black fire driver. But there was no way for him to know that El Grande Americano's mask was loaded on his goodbye amigo kick, so he simply could not fully recover from that. So he takes the loss and is 2-1 in one-on-one matches and 3-2 overall. So while there is no STF for the loaded mask because the ref simply needs to do a better job here, we will give Americano a 1-week suspension for pushing AAA legend Vikingo in the stands before the match. And even though Vikingo would be able to hold his own, he was just a fan tonight, so this was not allowed. And WWE also announced beforehand that they have purchased AAA, so if any of their performers are anything like these 2 luchadors, the WWE got a steal at any price. So this would get a double okay based on the amazing skill of both of these athletes, but we just simply can't have El Grande Americano getting away with a loaded mask time and time again, so this does get dropped 1 notch to okay. And lastly, we just keep being a billionaire Barbie as Tiffany Stratton gets down and dirty and comes out like $1 billion with a rolling senton and a prettiest moonsault ever to retain the WWE Women's Championship. So Tiffy is the ones, and the animosity that these 2 showed really carried through in this one, as it was more of a brawl than a match to start. But once it got going, she had 2 handspring back elbows and 2 spine busters, but it was a simple push off of the top rope that caused Charlotte to tweak her injured knee that perhaps slowed her just enough. So Charlotte missed the spear to fly into the turnbuckle, so Tiffy took advantage with an Alabama slam right back into that turnbuckle before ending it with that prettiest moonsault ever, so she remains undefeated in 2025 at 8-0 in one-on-one matches, and she has completely turned things around from 24 when she was 0-7-1 in one-on-one matches after WrestleMania. But that makes Charlotte the twos, and maybe she was better with the brawl as she slammed Tiffy on top of and then into the side of the barricade, and later she landed a sit-out powerbomb, but she ended up being more vicious after she hurt her injured knee as she tried to do the same to Tiffy, slamming hers up against the post 2 times. But when she followed up those knee shots by going for a figure 8, she was stopped when Tiffy kept hitting her own injured knee. But even after a natural selection off of the top rope, she still was not able to get this one done, so she drops to 2-1 in 2025. Even with a queen and a Barbie, this was not the prettiest match ever, but sometimes you just have to get it done, gritty, and fight it out, so this also gets an okay. Briefly beyond the mat for WrestleMania Night 1, Bayley was attacked by an unknown assailant during the pre-show, and so we saw a graphic showing that she is out of her tag team title match for Night 2, but it is not yet known who will replace her. Unlike Fenix, however, it doesn't matter who replaces her because that's not cool, and Double not okay. Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman are both so smart compared to the other guy that Heyman was previously working for, so it looks like we are in for a revolutionary boom period for the WWE, and like Seth Rollins told you on SmackDown that he would win, because that's not a prediction, that's a spoiler. You should go back and check out my grades for that segment and for the rest of SmackDown right on over here, because if you do, you'll see the same vision of a brighter future, and that is double okay.